You have been the main topic inside your soulmate's home since 11:47 last night, when their younger sibling stood up from the dinner table, placed an old bank notice in front of everyone, and said, "The house was never almost lost because of them. It was almost lost because of me." Until that moment, your soulmate believed you had used a family crisis to pressure them into leaving home and building a future with you. They believed you encouraged money to be moved from the mortgage account, created unnecessary fear about the property, and then offered financial help so the family would become dependent upon you. That story was the reason they defended their relatives, questioned your intentions, and allowed you to walk away carrying a reputation you did not deserve. But the confession last night exposed something no one inside that home was prepared to face. You did not create the crisis. You secretly gave up the money meant for your own future to keep their home from being taken, and someone in the family knew the truth while allowing your soulmate to believe you were the threat. Your soulmate wants to share this immediately because the conversation inside the house has not stopped. People moved from the dining room into the kitchen, then into the living room, carrying the same documents and repeating your name in voices filled with anger, shame, and disbelief. Some family members are demanding that your soulmate contact you before another hour passes. Others are warning that revealing everything could permanently divide the household. One person is still insisting the decisions made against you were necessary to protect the family. But your soulmate now understands that waiting for everyone to agree would repeat the same mistake that destroyed the connection. They allowed a family version of the truth to become more important than speaking directly to you once before. They do not want another family meeting deciding whether you deserve to hear what happened. This message is not asking you to return to the home, repair their family, or forgive anyone immediately. Your soulmate knows you may have spent months rebuilding the peace that house helped take from you. They need you to know why everyone has suddenly begun discussing the person they once blamed, and why the youngest person at the table finally admitted that you protected all of them while they were questioning your character. The crisis began during the period when you and your soulmate were quietly preparing to build a life together. You had not announced an engagement or selected a wedding date, but the direction of the relationship was becoming clear. Your soulmate had started looking at smaller homes and apartments closer to work. You discussed how both of you would manage expenses, divide responsibilities, and remain supportive of family without allowing family emergencies to control every decision. You were not asking them to abandon anyone. You understood how deeply they loved the house where they had grown up. It contained memories of birthdays, losses, arguments, celebrations, and an older relative whose presence still seemed to live in certain rooms. But you also noticed that the house had become more than a home. It was the center of an entire system built around your soulmate's sense of responsibility. Their income helped cover major expenses. Their name appeared beside several household accounts. Every time they considered moving, another emergency made independence feel selfish. A repair was suddenly needed. A bill had been forgotten. A relative required temporary support. None of these needs was entirely invented, but the pattern meant your soulmate's personal life was always postponed until the household felt completely secure, a moment that never arrived. You approached the subject carefully. You said moving out did not mean removing love. Your soulmate could continue contributing reasonably without being responsible for every person's choices. They agreed when both of you were alone. In private, they admitted they sometimes felt more like the structure holding the family together than a person allowed to create a separate future. They began saving for a deposit. You saved too. The plan remained private because your soulmate feared the household would interpret it as rejection before the details were complete. You accepted the secrecy temporarily, although part of you worried that another important decision was being built around avoiding family reactions. You told yourself courage would come once both of you had enough money and a practical plan. Then a mortgage notice arrived. The notice said 3 scheduled payments had not been completed and the account needed immediate attention. Your soulmate did not see it first. You discovered it while helping organize documents for an unrelated household insurance renewal. The amount missing was substantial. You knew your soulmate had transferred their monthly contribution consistently, which meant the money had either been redirected or never applied to the loan. You brought the notice to their younger sibling because that person had recently taken responsibility for several online household payments. The siblings' face changed before they said anything. They asked you not to tell your soulmate until they could explain. Several months earlier, the sibling had invested money in a small business opportunity introduced by a close friend. They believed the return would arrive quickly and allow them to repay the household account before anyone noticed. The opportunity failed. Rather than admit what happened, they used funds from the mortgage account to cover an urgent business obligation and protect themselves from embarrassment. They planned to replace everything after receiving payment from another project, but that payment was delayed. 1 missed payment became 2. 2 became 3. Every month made confession more frightening. The sibling knew your soulmate would feel betrayed because the household depended heavily upon careful financial planning. They also feared being removed from the home. Another relative had previously warned that one serious financial mistake would prove they were too irresponsible to remain involved with family accounts. They begged you for 48 hours. You refused to hide the crisis completely, but you agreed to help them understand the options before approaching everyone. You contacted the lender without revealing private information and learned that a temporary repayment arrangement might prevent the account from escalating. A significant amount still needed to be paid immediately. The sibling had very little money left. Your soulmate's funds were already committed. The deposit you had saved for the future both of you discussed was almost exactly the amount required. You transferred the money. You did not do it to purchase influence over the family or create a claim upon the house. You did it because waiting another 2 days could increase the consequences. You told the sibling the payment was temporary and that everyone needed to hear the truth once the immediate danger had passed. The sibling promised. The truth was never told. Before the family meeting could happen, an older relative discovered that you had contacted the lender. They saw the payment record but did not know why the mortgage funds were missing. Instead of asking you directly, they connected the crisis to your plan of moving out with your soulmate. They already feared that once your soulmate left the home, financial support would decrease. The relative concluded that you had intentionally created panic around the mortgage so your soulmate would believe the family home was unstable and agree to separate finances quickly. They confronted the younger sibling privately. The sibling was terrified and remained silent. That silence allowed the relative's theory to grow. The older relative asked whether you had been discussing household money. The sibling admitted that you had. They asked whether you wanted your soulmate to move. The sibling said both of you were considering it. They asked whether the payment came from the deposit you had saved together. The sibling said yes. Every individual fact was true. Together, without the missing confession, they created a devastating lie. The relative believed you were using your own payment to make the household appear financially dependent upon you. They thought you wanted the family to feel guilty, allowing you to demand that your soulmate leave while appearing generous. The sibling could have stopped the story with one sentence. They did not. The relative contacted your soulmate before you had an opportunity to explain. They said you had entered private family finances without permission, moved money connected to the future you were planning, and begun speaking with the lender behind everyone's back. They described your actions as calculated. According to their version, you wanted to prove that the household was incapable of functioning without your involvement so your soulmate would finally choose you over the family. Your soulmate was shocked. They knew you wanted independence, but they had never believed you wanted control. Yet the evidence appeared difficult to dismiss. You had contacted the lender. You had made a large payment without discussing it with them. You had kept the mortgage notice private for almost 2 days. You had recently been asking for clearer financial boundaries. Your soulmate called you and asked whether you paid money toward the house. You said yes. They asked why you did not tell them. You looked toward the younger sibling, who was standing nearby, silently asking you not to reveal everything before they had spoken with the family. You said there were circumstances you wanted to explain privately. Your soulmate interpreted the answer as confirmation that something had been hidden deliberately. They asked whether you believed their family could not manage the home without you. You said that was not what happened. They asked whether your payment came from the deposit you had saved for the future. You admitted it did. The pain in their expression deepened because that money represented a promise both of you had made. You had used it without asking. Your reason was generous, but your soulmate did not yet know the reason. They saw only another decision affecting both lives made without their consent. They said, "You keep telling me my family controls my choices, but you just made the biggest financial choice of our future without me." The sentence was not completely unfair. You had acted quickly because the account required immediate attention, but you had still used shared plans without consulting them. Even a protective decision can remove another person's voice. You were prepared to acknowledge that mistake once the complete story was explained. But the complete story never came. The younger sibling remained silent while the family gathered in the living room. The older relative presented the situation as evidence that you had been waiting for a crisis to take control. They said the household had survived difficulties before you arrived and did not need an outsider using money to gain authority. You were called an outsider inside the home you had just helped protect. Your soulmate looked at you and asked for the entire truth. You looked again toward the sibling. They were crying silently and shaking their head. You understood that protecting them would cost you. You did not yet understand how much. You said the payment was your decision and no one else should be blamed. That statement protected the sibling from immediate exposure. It also made the family's accusation appear correct. Your soulmate asked whether you created the payment arrangement. You said yes. They asked whether you knew moving the deposit could delay your shared future. You said yes. They asked why they should trust that your help did not come with an expectation. You answered, because I have never asked you to repay love with obedience. The older relative said the answer sounded beautiful but avoided the financial facts. Your soulmate was overwhelmed, embarrassed, and frightened. They had spent months defending your belief that moving out could strengthen family relationships. Now the family was pointing toward a secret payment as proof that your version of independence involved manipulating circumstances. Your soulmate said something they have regretted since last night. Maybe you never wanted a future with me. Maybe you wanted to prove I needed you more than I needed this home. You became completely still. You had surrendered the deposit meant for that future to keep their home standing. You had accepted public suspicion to protect their sibling. Now the person you loved was using your sacrifice as evidence that your love had been dishonest. You did not expose the sibling. You said only, one day, someone inside this room will tell you what happened. When they do, remember that you had the opportunity to ask whether my character matched the story you were given. Then you left. The family expected you to contact your soulmate after emotions settled. You did not. You waited several days, hoping the sibling would confess. The sibling called you once and apologized. They promised they needed only a little more time. You said time was no longer protecting anyone. It was allowing a lie to become the official history of the relationship. Still, you agreed not to expose them publicly. You asked only that the money eventually be repaid and the truth be delivered directly to your soulmate. Neither happened. The sibling found temporary work and began slowly restoring money to the household account, but no one connected those payments to the original crisis. The older relative told everyone they had arranged the lender agreement. They did not understand that your payment had already created the time needed for the agreement to exist. Your soulmate believed their family saved the house after discovering your interference. The lie became stronger. When mutual friends asked why the relationship ended, your soulmate said financial trust had been broken. They did not publicly call you manipulative, but they allowed people to believe you crossed serious boundaries. Some friends became distant. Others advised your soulmate that love involving money and family control was dangerous. You never defended yourself by revealing the sibling's secret. The most painful consequence was not losing the deposit. It was watching your soulmate use the protected home as the place where they recovered from believing you had betrayed them. Months passed. The household began planning renovations. Your soulmate contributed more money because they felt guilty that the family had nearly faced financial instability. Moving out was delayed indefinitely. They told themselves the crisis proved the household needed them. The very event you quietly prevented became the reason your soulmate remained trapped inside the responsibility you once encouraged them to examine. You built a different life. You replaced the savings slowly, but you did not rebuild the same dream. When people asked whether you regretted making the payment, you said you regretted accepting responsibility for someone else's truth. Helping the family was not the mistake. Believing that silence would inspire the guilty person to become courageous was. Last night, the household gathered to discuss transferring partial ownership of the home. The family wanted the younger sibling's name added to future documents because they had recently become more financially responsible. Your soulmate supported the idea. They said everyone makes mistakes and deserves an opportunity to prove they have changed. That sentence became unbearable for the sibling. They asked whether your soulmate truly believed mistakes should be forgiven when someone accepts responsibility. Your soulmate said yes. The sibling went upstairs and returned carrying an old folder. Inside was the original mortgage notice, the failed business agreement, the lender's repayment arrangement, and a copy of your transfer. Your name appeared clearly beside the amount that prevented the account from escalating. The sibling placed everything on the table and confessed. They explained the failed investment, the missing mortgage payments, and the promise they made to you. They admitted that you contacted the lender because they were too frightened to act. They revealed that you used the deposit only after learning the house faced immediate consequences. They said you planned to tell everyone once a solution was in place, but the older relative's accusation arrived first. Your soulmate asked why you accepted blame. The sibling answered, "Because I begged them not to destroy my life." The room became quiet. They explained that you believed exposing them publicly during the family's panic could lead to their removal from the house and prevent anyone from focusing upon the financial solution. You intended to protect them for one evening, not for months. You trusted them to confess once the danger passed. They failed you. Your soulmate asked whether you ever demanded repayment, influence, or ownership. The sibling produced another document. It was a signed letter you gave the lender stating that your payment created no claim upon the property and should not be interpreted as an investment. You had specifically refused to be listed as a financial stakeholder. You wanted the family protected without allowing money to become power. The document destroyed the central accusation against you. You were not attempting to control the house. You legally removed your ability to claim anything from it. Your soulmate looked toward the older relative who originally created the story. They asked whether that person knew about the sibling's mistake. The relative admitted they discovered part of the truth several weeks after you left. The sibling had confessed privately because guilt became unbearable. The relative decided not to correct the story. By then, the household had stabilized, your soulmate had recommitted financially to the home, and the conflict appeared to be ending. Revealing the truth might have encouraged your soulmate to contact you, reconsider moving out, and question the family's dependence upon their income. The relative said they were afraid. They had recently lost work and did not know how the mortgage would be managed if your soulmate created a separate household. They believed your influence would reduce the support available to everyone else. Allowing you to appear controlling made your soulmate feel responsible for protecting the family. The motive was not hatred. It was dependence disguised as concern. Your soulmate asked, "You allowed me to believe they betrayed me because you were afraid I might leave?" The relative answered that families sometimes make painful decisions to remain together. Your soulmate replied, "You did not keep us together. You made someone outside this house pay the price for everything we refused to face inside it." That was when the discussion spread through every room. One family member defended the relative, arguing that the household was under extraordinary pressure. Another said pressure did not justify destroying an innocent person's character. Someone blamed the sibling for remaining silent. Someone else blamed your soulmate for accepting the accusation too quickly. The younger sibling refused to let the conversation become another method of distributing responsibility until no one carried it clearly. They said, "I made the original mistake. They protected me. Every day after that, I allowed the person who saved this home to be remembered as the person who threatened it." Your soulmate asked why the confession came now. The siblings said they could not accept ownership of a home protected by your money while your name remained connected to dishonesty. They also revealed that you had contacted them recently, not to demand repayment, but to release them from the remaining debt. You wrote that you had rebuilt your savings and no longer wanted money connecting your lives. You asked them to use whatever they intended to repay toward the household, provided they finally told the truth. Even after everything, you were not trying to remove security from the family. You wanted the lie removed from your name. The sibling had read your message repeatedly without answering. Last night, when your soulmate spoke about responsibility and forgiveness, they realized accepting your release without confessing would become another act of taking from you. Your soulmate asked to see the message. The final sentence said, "I can survive losing money and a relationship, but I refuse to let fear become the permanent author of what happened." Your soulmate left the table. They entered the room where both of you once discussed moving and found an old folder containing apartment listings. Your handwriting appeared beside one property, close enough to visit, far enough to breathe. You had never planned to take them away from the family. The home you imagined was less than 20 minutes away. Your soulmate remembered accusing you of wanting to prove they needed you more than they needed their home. The truth was that you had designed a future allowing them to keep both love and family, while everyone inside the household treated those things as enemies. They sat on the floor and cried, but the tears did not make them innocent. The family lied. The sibling remained silent. The relative protected financial dependence. Yet your soulmate knew your character before any document appeared. They had seen how you helped people without creating debt. They knew you never used gifts as leverage. They knew you wanted honest boundaries, not control. Still, when fear entered the room, they allowed several suspicious facts to become stronger than the person you had consistently shown yourself to be. They did not follow you outside. They did not call the next morning and ask whether something remained hidden. They allowed pride to describe your silence as confirmation. Your soulmate returned to the table and corrected one statement. They said the family did not single-handedly destroy the relationship. They gave your soulmate a story, but your soulmate decided not to question whether the story matched your character. They said, "You hid the truth, but I was the one who looked at the person I loved and chose the explanation that required the least courage from me." The younger sibling asked whether they planned to contact you immediately. Your soulmate said they wanted to, but wanting relief was not the same as being ready to offer accountability. They could not call while the entire household listened, describe the confession, and ask you to comfort them. They needed to decide what would change even if you never returned. Your soulmate announced that their financial relationship with the house would be restructured. They would continue contributing fairly for a defined period, but no future emergency would automatically become their responsibility. Accounts would be separated. The sibling would manage their own repayment obligations. The older relative would need independent financial arrangements rather than relying upon guilt to keep your soulmate permanently available. They also paused the ownership transfer. Not to punish the sibling, but because ownership should follow complete financial transparency. The household would review every account with an independent advisor before adding anyone's name. The family accused your soulmate of reacting emotionally because of you. They answered, "They asked me to establish boundaries long before this truth was revealed." The fact that they were right does not make these boundaries revenge. This distinction matters. Your soulmate is not changing the household structure to prove love to you. They are changing it because remaining inside the old system would allow fear and dependence to create another victim later. Then they began writing to you. The first message said, "You saved my home." They deleted it because the phrase reduced everything to one heroic act. You also made a financial decision affecting your shared plans without consulting them, even if the circumstances were urgent. A mature explanation needed to acknowledge that your action was protective but not perfect. The second message said, "My family lied to me." They deleted that too. It was true, but it placed your soulmate outside the damage as another deceived person. The final message begins with responsibility. "My family told me you used money to control my choices. Last night, I learned that you used the money we had saved to stop the house from falling further behind after my sibling redirected the mortgage payments. You accepted the blame because they begged you to protect them. You signed away any claim to the house, and someone inside my family later learned the truth but kept it hidden." Then your soulmate admits, "Should have asked whether the accusation matched the person I knew. Instead, I allowed fear about my family to become more believable than your character. I said you wanted to prove I needed you. The truth is that everyone inside this home needed what you gave, and we repaid you by making your love look manipulative." Your soulmate wants you to hear one sentence above everything else: "You were never trying to take me away from my home. You were the person who kept it standing while I allowed everyone inside it to make you homeless in my heart." That sentence silenced the household when your soulmate read it aloud. Even the relative who defended the original decision had no response. Your soulmate does not expect the message to restore the relationship. They understand that the revelation may arrive after you stopped imagining a future with them. You may forgive the sibling because they were frightened and still decide that your soulmate's lack of trust caused damage too deep to repair. You may feel relief that your intentions have finally been understood. You may feel anger because understanding required documents when your character should have mattered. You may want your contribution acknowledged publicly. You may prefer that no one use your sacrifice to create another emotional story around the family. Every response belongs to you. Your soulmate has told the household that no one may contact you directly. The sibling wants to apologize, but your soulmate said an apology must wait until you decide whether you want communication. The older relative has offered to explain their fear, but an explanation is not something you are required to receive. You spent long enough carrying consequences created by conversations held inside that home. You do not need to enter another family discussion simply because everyone finally knows your name was treated unfairly. Your soulmate will return the money through an independent account. You may accept it, reject it, or direct it elsewhere. They will not use repayment as a reason to request access. Money created confusion once before. It should not become emotional leverage again. They have also begun correcting the story with mutual friends. They are not sharing the siblings' private details unnecessarily. They simply state that the financial accusation against you was false, your payment protected the household, and their earlier understanding was incomplete. When friends say they only believed what your soulmate told them, your soulmate accepts responsibility. They were the person whose voice gave the accusation credibility. A private apology cannot repair a public misunderstanding while the public story remains untouched. If you agree to one conversation, your soulmate wants it to happen somewhere neutral. Not inside the family home and not inside the apartment both of you once imagined. They will bring the documents and answer questions without asking you to minimize your experience. You may ask why they did not follow you. They will say pride allowed them to avoid uncertainty. You may ask why they believed the family. They will say family dependence had trained them to treat every boundary as a threat. You may ask whether the household will control future choices again. They cannot promise pressure will disappear. They can show the structural changes being made so pressure no longer controls accounts, housing, or communication. Most importantly, you may ask whether they understand why you might never return. A sincere answer will not say, "Because my family lied." It will say, "Because I knew your heart and still made you prove it against a story built from fear." That is where accountability begins. The confession last night changed what your soulmate understands about love. They once believed loyalty meant protecting family from every consequence. Now they see that protecting people from responsibility allowed fear to spread until an innocent person carried the entire burden. The sibling needed accountability, not exile. The relative needed boundaries, not humiliation. The household needed financial honesty, not a villain. You needed the person who loved you to ask one more question before accepting the worst interpretation. No one offered what was truly needed. You did. You found the problem, created time, prevented immediate damage, and prepared a responsible conversation. Then you accepted blame when another person panicked. Your compassion was used against you because no one believed compassion could exist without hidden control. Do not let their delayed understanding change what you know about yourself. You were not foolish for helping. You were not weak for protecting someone. But you have learned that protection without a clear deadline can become participation in another person's dishonesty. You are allowed to help while refusing to carry blame. You are allowed to say, "I will stand beside you, but I will not lie for you." Your soulmate has learned a similar lesson. Family love should not require accepting every story offered in the name of unity. A home is not protected when its walls remain standing while trust is destroyed inside them. Financial security means very little when maintaining it requires sacrificing someone's character. Since last night, your name has moved through that house differently. The kitchen remembers the morning you brought food without being asked. The hallway remembers the boxes you helped carry during repairs. The living room remembers the plans you made to remain close after moving. The front door remembers the final time you left while everyone interpreted your silence as guilt. Those memories were always present. The confession has changed what they mean. Family members who once saw your presence as a threat now understand that you were creating an alternative to dependence. You did not want your soulmate separated from the household. You wanted love to exist without every emergency becoming a chain. Your soulmate hopes the revelation creates another opportunity, but they no longer describe hope as entitlement. The person you were when the accusation happened might have reopened the door immediately after hearing the truth. The person you are today may require evidence, distance, or complete closure. Late honesty does not have the right to demand your earlier softness. If another person now loves you with consistency, your soulmate will not interfere. They will not say saving the house creates a permanent bond. Your sacrifice was an act of character, not a contract giving anyone ownership over your future. If you are free and still feel something, move slowly. Do not return because everyone in the home is finally praising you. Praise can become another emotional extreme. The same family that quickly turned suspicion into certainty may now turn gratitude into pressure. You do not need to become the household's hero after being treated as its villain. Observe whether they respect your boundaries when gratitude receives no immediate reward. Observe whether the sibling remains accountable after the confession's emotion fades. Observe whether the older relative creates independent stability instead of using guilt again. Observe whether your soulmate continues making their own decisions when the household becomes uncomfortable. The truth spoken last night is powerful. The behavior beginning today will determine whether the truth produces change. Your soulmate's final message says, "You have been the only topic inside this home since last night." Some people are ashamed. Some are angry. Some are still defending choices they made from fear. I am contacting you before everyone agrees because agreement inside this house has already cost us too much. They continue, "You protected my sibling. You protected the house. You protected my family's dignity even after we damaged yours. But I am not asking you to return because of what you gave us. I am telling you because you deserve to know that the story attached to your name has finally been corrected." Then they release you. I hope there is still a conversation available between us. If there is not, I will accept that I learned the truth after you learned to live without my understanding. You owe this home nothing. You owe my family no forgiveness. You owe me no second chance. This is the important message your person wants to share. You were not the cause of the financial crisis. You did not try to use money to control your soulmate. You did not intend to separate them from their family. You surrendered your own plans to protect a home whose residents later treated you like an intruder. The confession has finally reached every room. But the greatest revelation is not simply that you were innocent. It is that the house your soulmate believed they needed to protect was being held together by silence, fear, and dependence, and you were the person brave enough to imagine a healthier way of loving everyone inside it. Comment: my kindness will never require me to carry another person's lie, if you are ready to protect your compassion with honest boundaries. Like this video if you believe real love must defend character before documents prove the truth, and subscribe for more emotionally powerful stories about hidden sacrifice, accountability, and self-respect. You have been the main topic in your soulmate's home since last night. The family finally knows you did not endanger their security. You preserved it. Your soulmate finally knows you were not trying to take them away. You were trying to build a future where love and family could exist without fear controlling both. Whether that truth brings them back into your life remains your decision, but no one inside that home can honestly use your name as the villain again.